Hi everyone, Steve Davis here. Welcome to episode 435 of the Adelaide Show podcast. It's a little short episode to reflect on a couple of bits of nuance building on last episode's conversation about our state of politics here in South Australia. David Olney, thankfully, has returned, and our political commentator, Robert Godden, joins us. He was on a very tight timeline, but he chipped in to get his top 2 bobs worth into the conversation because he's been with the Adelaide Show almost since its inception, so it only seemed fair, and I wanted to hear what he had to say. And at the end, we're going to finish with my song for Don Dunstan.
Wave on waves since the gun band room. Adelaide, who landed here and made it their home. Adelaide, who 10-pound bombs to the refugees. Adelaide, who brings Italians to their knees. Adelaide, who oh, little Adelaide, oh, Adelaide, who oh, little Adelaide, who.
In the spirit of reconciliation, the Adelaide Show podcast acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout South Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today.
Adelaide, Adelaide, Adelaide.
Following on our last episode, there will be quite a number of extra bits and bobs to consider over coming weeks and months, but I figured, seeing I dipped my toe in the water of political reflection out loud, it's not only useful to have David Olney here to see through what he started. David, welcome back.
Thank you.
But our political commentator of the Adelaide Show, Robert Godden. Hello, Robert.
Hello, Steve. Hello, David.
Now, we're trying to make sense of getting bearings to understand what the heck is happening in the world. And, I mean, Peter Malinauskas' name has been mentioned a few times. And one thing that David Olney said to me, I'll get him to expand on this thesis and get you to reply, Robert. In fact, I'll set you both up first, and then I'll just let you fight each other to the death. David Olney said, no, this is not Mali. These are people who are the products of the representative political or democratic political system. So don't go the person, think systemically. You can expand on more of that later, David. And Robert and I reflected on how, when we did our 2 pre-election profiles of Labor and Liberal, Labor, I think you said, Robert, that basically Malinauskas can book himself at the our equivalent of the Lodge until the 2030s, until it's time to leave. He's a dictator, but when he's doing the stuff you like, that's lovely. It's when he's not, it's not so much. So I want these 2 theses to combine. Perhaps David Olney, can you finish off a brief version of what you were saying? And then, Robert, you have time to gather your thoughts and bring your beautiful elocution to the ear.
Absolutely. So really my point about see the system, not the man or the woman, is that we have a political system that's been 2 parties for a very long time. Political parties absorb people at 18. By 25 to 30, they're a senior advisor. By their mid-30s, they're possibly going to get a state-level seat. And by that point, they know the rules, they know who to listen to, they know who they have power over, and they know how to sell the message. And it really doesn't matter who they were at the beginning. By the end, they're a product of the system. Whether their party is disciplined or not becomes the key difference. And Robert's comment about he can do what he's doing until the mid-2030s is just proof of the discipline of the system. And the fact that at the moment in South Australia, the Liberal Party's discipline of their system has collapsed.
Robert, what's your reflection as we head down this pathway?
Well, I don't think it's an either or. I think both contentions can be true.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my comment is really on on who we've got now and what he's doing. And David's comment is, I guess, about the underlying system that gets us into that position. I don't think both things are completely valid. I mean, let's start with the dismal science, economics. Right? A lot of people think economics is about money, but it's not really. It's about incentivization. And almost every political party, at almost every opportunity to do so, fails to understand that incentivization and punishment change behavior. So they don't understand it when they're putting tax up on beer and cigarettes. Then they understand it. We're doing this for your own good. You know, if we charge you a whack of tax, then you'll definitely give up beer and cigarettes. But in most cases, politics is framed around the idea that you can do whatever you damn well like and it won't affect behaviour, which is A, clearly wrong, and B, not as wrong as I'd really like it to be. So there's been very little pushback on Malinowskis, the benevolent dictator. And I say the only difference in benevolent and non-benevolent is doing things that you broadly agree with. And if you look at the idea that there's a disconnect between what the system gives us and what we want, so, you know, I as a citizen don't have much say because all I can do is vote for, you know, my local election on one politician, and then the system will give me the party that's more interested in the party platforms and things like that. But at the end of the day, you talk to the average voter and you know, they're remarkably inconsistent. You know, you get, for example, our favourite whipping boy, One Nation voters, and they say people shouldn't come here if they're not going to respect our laws. And then they say things like, we should throw that person out of the country. And you go, but hang on, the law says that you can't throw that person out of the country. Well, they're not interested in the law anymore. You know, so and most of us are like that to a certain extent. You know, personally, I would outlaw religion and instant coffee. But I understand that not everyone is as upset as I am about religion. So I think that firstly, we're a terribly inconsistent electorate. Secondly, we're voting in real people who are terribly inconsistent, like the new One Nation MP federally who accidentally voted with the Greens. And then on top of that, the people we put in with unrealistic expectations in a flawed system often turn out to just do what they want anyway. So that's the hand we're dealt. And the one thing that we've been able to count on, for hundreds of years is shame. We can shame these people into doing the right thing. And unfortunately, that roll book has been ripped up since 2016.
Because of Trump.
Because of Trump.
Oh, there's so much to unpack there. But you mentioned the dismal science, and I think this is where David Olney was also making his point that, and I think we covered this a lot in our previous conversation, it's neoliberalism is really the poison that everyone is drinking.
And that gives us an economic model that is a wonderful political model for saying we don't have any other choice. And your thing of changing behaviour through tax. Okay, they've put the price of cigarettes up so much that we've now got an illicit tobacco industry that means we burn buildings down across Australia. Because at the end of the day, humans would rather be addicts than stop smoking. So our inconsistency is spectacular as individuals, but this is the problem of democracy. Democracy says pick a representative to represent this many thousand of you. Now this person's going to represent this many thousand of you, even though this many of you didn't vote for them. So by the very nature of the system, we're asking a massive inconsistency to be represented inadequately. And we wonder why it goes wrong.
Is there a perfect system?
Well, there's different systems. If we look, the Athenians got 500 people together and said, you lot are listening to this court case. Off you go. You lot go and make up a policy for how we do this. Off you go. And because you're citizens, what you come back with at the end of the day as a majority decision amongst the 500 of you will be what we do. So at least you trust citizens to be part of the solution. Representative democracy, as we have it, says we will trust you every 3, 4 or 5 years to make a single vote at which we will ignore half of you. That's not a very good system. It's just a convenient, easy to manage system.
Yeah. And look, I don't doubt on that. And the Athenian, this idea of these large citizens' assembly, I think it's a truism that if you put hundreds of people together, you're going to get a better result for that than you are with what we're going. However, that's if you get a result. Because you put 100 people in a room, 200 people in a room, you may also, you definitely have to have a structure and a system around it. Otherwise, it's just going to turn into chairs being thrown.
Actually, it was an incredibly simple system. It was a water clock. You have until the water clock runs out to make a decision. Otherwise, you lot are known as the citizens who were incompetent.
Again, it relies on shame.
Yeah, but shame works.
They were also given to populism. I mean, the whole reason Socrates ended up having to take the poison is the crowd were against him.
Well, no, the elite were against him, and by that point, democracy was being undermined, and it had been being undermined for basically Socrates' entire adult life, which is what he was pointing out, which almost guaranteed he was going to have to drink hemlock.
So I think we can rule out that model then, because it ultimately decays.
Please wait.
I'm not against hemlock.
No, hemlock's got great
No, judiciously applied, I'm all for it.
Yeah, as long as there's a high tax on it.
So I suppose, again, a thing that Steve and I have talked about in the car before is, at the end of the day, the ultimate irony is most of us don't want to be in a parliament, don't want to spend our day doing that, and then we complain about the people who do want to be there. So we've got a fundamental problem with representative democracy, that those who want to turn up normally piss the rest of us off.
I have personal experience of that. I was once a small business owner in Mount Barker, and I didn't like the way the business environment in Mount Barker, so I joined the Chamber of Commerce. And literally and I became the head of the Chamber of Commerce, and every second business person I ran into had a bitch about the way business was being run in Mount Barker. And I said, I don't believe what you're telling me because you're not on the committee. And if you really believed what you were saying, you'd be trying to change it rather than belly aching.
Yep.
But I mean, politicians can't say that. They can't, can they? Tom Coots and Stearns can't say, if you don't like my policy, come and make one yourself. More fun if we could.
But you're on a really important point there, Robert. What is the equivalent for us being upset about the lack of transparency with certain deals and things that are happening, irreversible things that are being done to our natural heritage? Is there an equivalent of joining the Chamber of Commerce, and was that actually effective?
You can join a political party, and you can join that party and you can get involved, and you can say, I'm going to spend time, effort and money wielding my considerable talents and my effort, my enthusiasm, my zeal, and the most you get is a say in who your party puts up to that electorate.
And
so, yeah, for most people, unless you've got lots of money and want to become a large political donor, which is becoming increasingly difficult anyway, I don't think there is, and rightly so, I don't think there's much an individual can do, but certainly banding together is what we can do. We can get 500 successors to the Athenians together in a room, agree on something, and then all go out and try to make it happen.
But on that point, Possum Park is a great example. The government's very good at spinning that away and moving the ball somewhere else. You're all complaining about this. Hey, we've got gather around now for another few years with no acknowledgement of the other issue. They're able to flood the zone. To me, does that... And I mean, Leonard Cohen said there's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Where is the light here? Where is the hope? Does that mean we give up petitions or...
No, to jump back a step here, we recognise that all parties had to bring rules in to stop branch stacking because people did start getting together, joining parties, stacking branches and changing who got put forward as the candidate for the next election. And the people at the centre of parties hated it. because it took control took control away from people who had run parties for 20 or 30 years and gave them to a branch who went, we're giving you a different pre-selected person. Deal. We're white-handing your party from the inside. So collective action is the solution to everything. And the ultimate tool of our era is to think that economically we're on our own, and that socially we're on our own, and that politically you don't have a voice because you're one person. History is made by collective action. All right, there are leaders to collective action, and a lot of those leaders didn't really want to lead. They just no longer felt they could sit and do nothing. But the point is, crowds got up behind them. The unique thing at the moment is we rage on social media rather than being productive in the real world. And that's the ultimate power of the social media system, is you think that's the place to put energy and effort.
Robert Godden has to leave us, sadly, because I had one real pearler of a question to ask.
Go for it.
An example of this collective action, at the moment, the Premier, at the time of recording, announced this beautiful 16% pay rise for our nurses, fantastic deal. The head of the Nurses Federation came out and said, dear members, we've done the best we can with everything being equal. We couldn't expect more. And yet every nurse I've seen on social media is saying, that's not me. This is a disconnect. We'll be voting no. Even that structured collective action seems to not so much have they been influenced or bought off? Are they trying to communicate the reality? It's still hard work, collectivism, Robert.
Well, I think you and I have both been having some conversations lately about the way Facebook magnifies outrage, and what we've seen may not be the real story. So I'd hesitate to do that. But I would say, and also, of course, people who are outraged are more likely to be commenting on it. If people go, oh, that's fine, I'll go about my day, I've got a dog to feed, I've got a letters to drop off at the post office, if such things even exist. I've just got normal tasks to do. I don't have to jump on Facebook and vent my spleen. But people who have a particularly spleeny view of it definitely will. But the other thing I'll say in passing, because I literally do have to leave, is look, I think our system is fantastic, but only when compared to everything else.
Very Churchillian.
We don't have to worry about being, machine gunned in the voting line like they do in Kenya. We don't have to worry about being trampled. We don't have to worry like they do in the United States if our boss won't let us out to vote to make sure we don't vote for the people they don't want to. We have got a fantastic system, and we should work absolutely tirelessly to make it better, because it's not good enough. But we must also understand, and possibly that's a problem we've got. It's not bad enough that we're all going to get off our backsides and put an effort in. But anyway, I do have to depart.
Thank you for joining us.
No worries.
We'll hear more from you in the future. David, on that, because we don't have to leave straight away, and I think we were heading to an important point there. It's imperfect. I do take some consolation from the voting structure we have, where it's not first past the post, where it's preferential.
The preferential is by far a better system.
I think it does blunt the pointy sticks of fads, but it does also perhaps incline itself towards the status quo, which can be frustrating if the party in power has no real opposition. They just know how to get enough to keep the thing going. But Robert was talking about something interesting there, and I think this is the key point. And you and I have been reading lots of books together, and I forget who the book was. It was the older gentleman reflecting on life and coming up with life lessons.
Oh, John C. Maxwell's book.
Yeah. He said, life is hard, and we can't actually dodge that. But the sooner we accept it, the more we'll be able to look at life realistically. And I think that applies to this point in time politically. Yes, it's hard to get together collectively. I'm seeing some amazing energy among different groups of people. I am sure the messages are getting through. At the moment, the political system has a very well-oiled machine that's able to supposedly deflect that, at least in the eyes of the media, because there's this symbiotic relationship the media has with politicians. They don't want to be locked out. They want to maintain their connection. And so you can push a little bit, but not too much. They've got to play to the crowd to keep getting clicks. And so even though a story might demand a number of days of going at it, if they sense the public appetite isn't there, they'll move on as well to get the clicks. It is about, I think, we're coming back to man's search for meaning here. It is about finding something to latch onto bigger than ourselves, outside of ourselves, to nourish our energy when we want to give up, so that we don't give up.
Yeah. And
would you agree?
It's also the fact, definitely yes, but we're also really getting back to when we were talking about Ted Robert Gurr. You first expect that it should get better. Oh, it's not. Yeah. Then you expect, oh, it shouldn't get worse. Yes, it is. And it's only when both of those expectations are broken that people take action. So we're only just getting into the period where more and more people each day believe it's getting worse. And that's not meant to happen. So that's when collective action will rebuild. And it will only rebuild from now on. It wasn't going to be magical collective action in a time where most people weren't suffering. It's not how humans function. Like Robert saying we're inconsistent, that's true, but we're actually very consistent in as much as unless we're suffering really badly, we just bumble along. It's what our species does. If it's sort of okay, we get on with it. And we grumble, but we don't change it because we see the enormity of change. And there's infinitely more risk in change than there is discomfort in suffering that's pretty similar tomorrow to than today. So we'll go with discomfort we know rather than take a risk for something that we don't know, even if it is better.
So that's why we should be saying hats off to the people who are getting out, attending together, getting petitions signed.
It's where it starts.
Signing petitions, and not to be bleak.
Yeah, because out of the grassroots things that are starting now, we'll get the leaders who never wanted it. They never thought this would be their life's aim. Like one of the nicest podcast recordings I ever did was with Barbara Pocock, the now Green senator, who had a career first as an academic, thought she was going to retire, looked at the state of politics and went, oh, crap. I can't not do something about this, and got involved. And that's exactly the kind of person I want in the Senate. Someone who didn't go, oh, at 18, I'll start heading down the path of being an advisor by 25, a senior advisor by 30, pre-selection at 35. No, she got on with a career of educating people and doing research, so she knew what she was talking about and understood what young people need, and then went, I can't go and retire with the world in this state. As opposed to a bunch of hacks who follow them back through university politics, through to party, to advising, to senior advising, and eventually through to pre-selection. Ashton Hearn was Marshall's ex-comms manager. It's the most conventional way to move through politics in Australia. Malinowskis was a party room machine before he ever had a seat.
And now he's negotiating with the Nurses Federation over the nurses.
And again, it's what he has to do as Premier. But again, as Robert said also, let's see the nurses vote. Let's see how they vote. Loud, angry voices get more coverage every time. People who get on with it, and then look at the form and go, what am I voting for? What's the best deal I can get? And they'll make their decision. And when they make their decision, then we'll find out what happened collectively. But until then, all we've got is the drama of Facebook, which has got nothing to do with the real negotiations in the world that real people will vote on.
So what was Leonard Cohen saying? Because I think he's saying the opposite in lieu of the Barbara Pocock story. So Leonard Cohen has a poem. It's just 4 lines in it. They locked up a man who wanted to rule the world. The fools, they locked up the wrong man. I've always been puzzled by that because that seems on the surface to be the opposite of what you just said.
Again, wanted to rule the world makes me highly suspicious. Felt compelled to change the world. That's the person. Again, we talked about David Pocock last time. Does David want to rule the world or does David want to change the world?
Yeah.
And this to me is a critical question. If you join that political party at 18, some want to rule the world, some want to change the world. But by the time you're 35 and you get pre-selection, what's the system and the experience done to you?
You want to keep your job?
Precisely. You've invested so much by that point in the pathway, there is no choice but forward.
And then once you retire that there's going to be a posting, a governorship,
Yep. So
ambassador.
at a certain point, when you're trusted to be our representative, you're a hack, and you can't be anything else by that point.
So I will finish with this thought. It might or might not be in the show notes, David. I know you said I should hold off until I've actually done this, but I'm going to put myself under some pressure. I have been playing, because you and I have both read a book by Ed Coper called Angertainment, which is a very handy book for trying to understand the different types of angry bits of social media designed to stir us up, to either separate us from others, to bond us together, to muddy the waters over an issue so you can take an easy way out. I think they're the main things that it's playing
That's the
at.
core. Yep.
And I found it so helpful that I have built a little tool inspired by Angertainment, but actually involving a lot of other thought as well, so that when I come across a social media post that I suspect is trying to trigger me or other people, I can copy and paste in the comments, and choose to either have something drafted that I can contribute to the conversation, or just for my own edification to understand what's going on here. Because this angry feed of social media we all seem connected to now has one thing that keeps it alive. It forces the instant reaction, that emotional blast. And if there's any pause between seeing something and reacting, it loses the ability, the potential for our response to be magnified. I think you'd agree on
Absolutely. Every second that you can just sit and wait for your emotional state to regulate and then look at it with calm eyes and a calm brain is just the best thing you can do.
So this particular tool, I'm going to experiment with having it available on the Adelaide Show website. I'll put a link in the show notes. It might be somewhere else. I've got to work out where to host it and how much it's going to cost to host. Allows you to do that. And I'll give you an example, which surprised me. There was a meme that was going around, and it was a picture at the top of Gina Reinhardt. And the thing said something like, don't worry about how she's spending her money. And underneath is a picture of Albo saying, worry about how this clown is spending your money. So you can see what it's trying to do. It's a One Nation party, not official, but One Nation followers account sharing this meme going, yeah, buddy, right. You know, who cares if Gina buys a plane for Pauline and is trying to influence? That's her money. It's her money. Whereas Albo's spending your money. That was the thing. And it didn't sit right with me. I pasted it into this little tool I've made. And sure enough, it highlighted the fact that when you reflect on this, Gina Reinhardt's money, where does that come from? She's inherited a business that makes royalties from ripping stuff out of the ground.
From our sovereign wealth.
From our sovereign wealth. So in many ways, her money is our money.
And we just have a system that lets her keep taking it.
And yet, some of the people who'd be cheering her on might also be swayed by the argument at the moment that the international companies taking our gas and not being taxed should be taxed. But you can't have it both ways. Either Gina has to cough up considerably fair royalties, or these other companies do. It can't be one rule for one and one rule for the other. But that is inconvenient when you're trying to make people angry. This tool has one job, to identify the, that's the method that's being used in this one, and it can suggest a draft if you want to reply, or it can just edify you to understand that you haven't been sucked in this time.
And slow you down and get you your agency back by letting the red mist of, oh, that's making me angry.
Yes.
Just get past that minute.
Yeah.
And then go, oh, do I want to continue with this? Or do I just want to be glad I slowed down and I now understand it in a more nuanced way?
So this is something I'm doing that I never thought last week or the week before I would, but I feel it's something that might be helpful for people. Because I must say, I enjoy bouncing things off you before I talk publicly. This is the little mini digital version of that. It's a mini David in a bottle.
That's an exciting concept. Just please, listener, don't shake the bottle.
I'll see if your wife wants one so she can just talk to you that way sometimes.
Oh, that could be very sad.
Yeah, no, we don't want to. The last thing we want is to dehumanize everything. Anyway, we've pulled this together. I'll see if it works. I'll see if it's helpful. And if it is, then maybe it's worth having a chat with Ed Coper to see if he wants to do anything bigger with it, with his bigger reach. But I'm itching to get people having a play with it, as I said, to see if it's helpful, because we're all together in this, trying to make sense of what's going on with our politics so that we have agency, and that means not being lazy, and we do things that work with the different gifts and skills we have. And this is kind of what I feel is something I could do.
And a very worthwhile thing it is too.
Thank you for listening again. I'm sorry, it was just another little short episode. I don't know when the next one's going to be, what it's going to be about. I am still doing a lot of reflecting and thinking in the meantime, but not going to give up. This is a place that I want to see thrive. There are too many people I'm connected to whose futures I'm invested in. I want them to have good futures. So we're not disappearing, just trying to be smart about the steps we take.
Like mushrooms will pop up somewhere.
Yeah, just don't serve us to your relatives.
Not without taste testing.
And now it's time for the musical pilgrimage.
In the musical pilgrimage, I want to finish with a song for Don Dunstan, because I have seen a couple of people say, David, in the comments about what decisions are being made for South Australia by a Labor Premier, people say, oh, what would Don Dunstan be thinking right now? He must be turning in his grave, etc. And I think we touched briefly on this in our conversation last week, how Don Dunstan would have survived if and when neoliberalism took hold of his party. Because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it hadn't quite got the grip when he was in power. It was just starting to emerge.
No, it was really by the time that John Bannon was Premier that it was beginning to transform everything. And I'm assuming that, like a lot of that generation of politicians, they were kind of feeling there wasn't any choice but to do something new because the model we had just wasn't delivering. It would be fascinating to think, what would Don think? What would John Bannon think? Yeah. They had different views, but both informed by a truly progressive nature and a desire to shepherd the South Australian community into a better future.
The other thing that I find fascinating when I was researching this song was, and I didn't realise at the time, I was only a kid when this was happening, but Steele Hall, the opposition leader and arch rival, inverted commas, were it not for him seeing the bigger picture, especially with the gerrymandering or playmandering, which he was able to have the confidence and the guts to help pass the rules that stopped that. He did in his own way by always seemingly trying to make his decisions based on what is right rather than what is politically savvy. He aided and abetted Don Dunstan in his ability to bring in innovations. And he gets a mention in this song because I think it's only right and proper, as we remember the history of Don Dunstan, we remember that Steele Hall was a part of that.
Absolutely, that here's someone that didn't have to do the right thing, but he did because he felt obliged to do the right thing on those big issues.
So here's the opposite of this Trump era where shame has been disengaged, doesn't work anymore. That partly would have been the other side of the coin of shame, of trying to do the thing that is right. Now, both gentlemen would have made decisions that weren't right from time to time as well. We've got to be fair. There were missteps along the way. But I think my looking back, and there might be some rose-tinted glasses here, but I think on balance, the general push, the drive, the sensibilities were what we might call sitting in the decent realm, even if some of the decisions pushed the moral boundaries of some. As Keith Condon said in our stage show that we did for History Month, it was a whirlwind of an era, and we were okay economically, but socially we were a bit drab until this era. And so this went along the way. And I thought it's only fitting after our conversation today to finish with this song in case you hadn't heard it yet. Anything else you want to add before we listen?
No, I think that's a great introduction to the song and a great context for what we've talked about.
Here's Good Night, Don by Steve Davis and the Virtuosos. And remember, I write all these lyrics by hand with blood, sweat and tears and use my virtual band to bring them to life in the hope that someone, in this case a Brechtian cabaret performer, wants to take it on and give it its own life, which is only fitting during the time of the Adelaide Cabaret Festival.
We had police spending time lurking in shadow, looking through windows. They were not fighting crime. They were the killjoys, hunting the bad boys. What man does at home is his own affair. If no one else gets hurt, why should we care? Good night, Dawn. Thanks for the dreams, thanks for color in the gray. Thanks for breaking hidden schemes that kept us locked in yesterday. Your life was no brief candle, was a mighty torch that shone. We follow in your shadow saying thanks and good night, Dawn. With the help of Steel Hall, you made voting fair, brought festival flair and champagne in the mall. Toast to shared history and our sweet legacy. The arts and reform are not luxury for society. It's air that we breathe. Good night, Dawn. Thanks for the dreams, thanks for color in the gray. Thanks for breaking hidden schemes that kept us locked in yesterday. Your life was no brief candle, was a mighty torch that shone. We follow in your shadow saying thanks and good night, Dawn. The old guard were quite upset. Coburn, he was cocked. Some zealots were shocked. The pink shorts on the steps. Welcome to this place. Each sex, creed, or race. Dress for the climate, don't dress for the Queen. May South Australians be proud and be seen. Good night, Dawn. Thanks for the dreams, thanks for color in the gray. Thanks for breaking hidden schemes that kept us locked in yesterday. Your life was no brief candle, was a mighty torch that shone. We follow in your shadow saying thanks and good night, Dawn. You stared down God at the water's edge. Ardon. You told First Nations that they had your pledge. Ardon. You stopped the swill to which we raise a glass. Ardon. When you fell ill, you never lost your class. Ardon. You made your mark, will never be the same. Ardon. You showed leadership meant being brave. Ardon. the service that we needed then. We won't see anyone like you again. Good night, Dawn. Thanks for the dreams, thanks for color in the gray. Thanks for breaking hidden schemes that kept us locked in yesterday. Your life was no brief candle, was a mighty torch that shone. We follow in your shadow saying thanks. And good night, Dawn.
Steve Davis and the Virtuosos. That is Good Night, Don. Thank you, David Olney.
Thank you, Steve.
What do we call you? Geopolitical analyst and complex problem solver?
Or just international relations guy.
Okay.
Whatever you like.
Thanks for coming back.
Always a pleasure.
Can we lure you to come back again?
Always.
All right. You do help me make sense of the world. And thank you to everyone who wrote notes and whatnot in the wake of last episode. That was fantastic. I think we have the makings of a community refinding itself just around this humble outcome. May there be many more blossoming like mushrooms in all ways, shapes and forms. And as we say at every episode, good night from me, Steve Davis. Good night, Don.
The Adelaide Show podcast is produced by my dad, Steve Davis. If you want to start a podcast or get some help producing creative content, talk to him. Visit stevedavis.com.au. Thanks, AJ. I'm Caitlin Davis, and I agree with everything my sister said. But there's one more thing to say. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave a rating or a review, because that will make my dad really happy. Oh, and one more thing. If you really, really liked it, please help a friend put the Adelaide Show on their phone. Thanks for listening. Buzz, buzz, I want to be.
Adelaide, Adelaide.